Sengoku period, 1467 to 1603, was an era of civil war and political instability in medieval Japan. It took place between the Muromachi period and the establishment of the Tokugawa shogunate. After years of warfare between feudal lords and alliances known as daimyo, the period saw the rise of the Takeda, Hojo, and Uesugi clans as regional powers, along with the early dominance of Oda Nobunaga. This era would profoundly shape Japanese society and pave the way for eventual reunification under Tokugawa Ieyasu, ending over a century of conflict. The period began with a struggle over shogunal succession amidst a decline in the shogunate's influence over autonomous daimyo provinces. Eventually, regional lords prioritized self-governance and territorial expansion over allegiance to the Kamakura and Ashikaga shogunates. Warring factions used new techniques and weapons imported from Portugal and China, most prominently sophisticated firearms. Cavalry horse also rose to prominence instead of traditional infantry tactics. Castles proliferated as fortified military structures rather than residences. This era witnessed some of the bloodiest battles in Japanese history, as alliances shifted constantly in brutal power struggles. New military innovations combined with decentralized authority led to endless civil wars characterized by raids, sieges, and massacres across the countryside. Peasants suffered tremendously under daimyo demands for more assets and taxes to fund military campaigns. Rice production and commerce declined dramatically, with estimates of population drops by a third due to violence, starvation, and disease outbreaks. In the early Sengoku period, the Onin War 1467 to 1477 devastated the cultural center of Kyoto. This power vacuum allowed warlords like the Uesugi, Takeda, and Hojo clans to gain territory in the north and east. Central authority continued collapsing due to the Onin War's devastation. However, one of the most powerful emergent warlords, Oda Nobunaga, began unifying the Awari province in central Japan during the 1550s. He introduced new techniques like volley fire and mounted archery along with firearms. Nobunaga's campaign continued with capturing Kyoto in 1568, overthrowing the 13th Ashikaga shogun. Over the following decade, he consolidated control over a majority of Honshu through well-organized campaigns. New military tactics and alliances with rural samurai allowed Nobunaga to overcome early resistances and dominate his opponents. Notable victories included subjugating the powerful Buddhist clerics who challenged his rule at Mount Hiei, and subduing the powerful Azai and Asakura clans. However, Nobunaga was assassinated in 1582 by one of his generals, Akechi Mitsuhide. Before accomplishing full reunification, control passed to one of his top generals, Toyotomi Hideyoshi. The brilliant Hideyoshi completed Nobunaga's work in establishing a centralized shogunate at his castle near Osaka. He defeated remaining rivals like the Hojo and secured control of Shikoku and Kyushu islands through successful campaigns and negotiated settlements. Hideyoshi also imposed a strict social hierarchy with samurai at the top and instituted measures to confiscate weapons from peasants. The death of Hideyoshi in 1598 led to another clash for dominance among powerful daimyo with imperial roots and claims. This included the 5 leading counselors who governed in Hideyoshi's son Toyotomi Hideyore's name. After some initial warfare, Tokugawa Ieyasu outmaneuvered rivals at the Battle of Sekigahara in 1600, capturing the 12-year-old Hideyori. Ieyasu then persuaded or defeated the remaining dissident daimyo over the following years, emerging as shogun in 1603 and establishing his government in Edo, now Tokyo. This ended over a century of almost constant civil war, and ensured Tokugawa clan rule for over 250 years of relative stability. The Sengoku period profoundly shaped Japanese society and paved the way for eventual reunification. For better or worse, it streamlined decentralized feudalism into a centralized Tokugawa shogunate. Military innovations accelerated Japan's later modernization and strengthened samurai culture. The conflict selected for capable leaders like Nobunaga and Hideyoshi, who adopted more effective war tactics. At the same time, civil war destroyed much of Japan's infrastructure, depopulated regions, drove untold thousands into poverty, and undermined unified cultural developments. The The rise of powerful warrior clans also curbed imperial and religious influences. Overall, though, the chaos of the Sengoku period proved a temporary obstacle before the blessings of reunification under an efficient early modern administrative state. The Tokugawa era ensured the peace and prosperity for Japanese civilization to flourish undisturbed for centuries. The likes of samurai heroism, divine rulership of emperors, and spiritual contemplation remained fixtures of society. Later industrialization and Western influence disrupted this balance, but the foundations had already grown quite strong from the eventual fruits of overcoming such prolonged and bloody internal conflict through energetic leadership. Sengoku Japan thus prepared the ground for continuing supremacy and innovation in the centuries still to come after 1603. In conclusion, Japan's Sengoku period from 1467 to 1603 saw over a century of civil war, as regional warlords battled for supremacy in the vacuum left by declining imperial and shogunal authority. New military tactics imported from abroad resulted in some of the bloodiest battles in Japanese history. Through the successive dominance of figures like Oda Nobunaga, Toyotomi Hideyoshi, and finally Tokugawa Ieyasu, the Sengoku unrest gradually gave way to the establishment of a strong centralized Tokugawa shogunate that unified Japan under 250 years of stable rule. Although it brought immense human costs, the Sengoku period had lasting impacts in streamlining political structures, advancing military methods, and selecting for potent leaders who eventually restored peace and prosperity to the Japanese islands.